Hey, how you doing? Let's do it to it. Let's work on a little bit of some chess here. Okay, here we go. Let's do this one. This is a little bit. I'm making a new study. So let me make sure I have this written in here. Timid. Yep. Okay. First, Timid's white and Winance is black. So it's not. This is not based on the opening. This is kind of a way of thinking that we're going to be going over. So it's kind of an overview. This isn't based on, like an opening. Like if the King's Indian or the Indian game comes up, it's just what we're going to be going over. So it's all about ideas. Okay, at this point, black chooses the natural move. Knight, no, E takes D D5. He assumes that white will recapture with C takes D5. It would obviously be a good idea to have played at this point. Instead of this move, hold on, let me see. Did I miss did I over extend? Oh, drat, I think I did. Sorry, guys. Let me make sure I have this right. Sometimes I get the move lines wrong. Perfect. Good. So G5, 6, H4, C5, D5, D6, G6, E6, G5, G3, 84, C2, 3.5, 92. Okay, no, so we're good. This is this is what he assumed that white would play. Also, what black wants to do is play his bishop out to f5 here. F5 is a big move, a power move. And this would protect the knight, attack also the queen, so that you can take with a discovery. So that's the idea with that takes is there. There's also a subline that if black played knight takes, there's knight takes, there's c takes, and there's even knight takes f2. But consider that we're considering the idea. This is what the author says. But consider the diagram. This right here, I'll show you. At this point, consider the diagram. Consider the diagram a little more. What strikes you about White's position? There are a lot of things to focus on, but White realizes that the real matter is that he has a slight lead of development. 4 of his pieces are out compared to Black's 3. That doesn't change the situation after E takes D, because the capture is not a developing move. Black believes he has made a forcing move, but even in a complex position, remember we talked about that, like Hannibal Smith, like this one, development matters more than capturing back. White's length of his lead, he lengthened his lead, which means he goes up, of course, by castle queenside. This is an exclam move here. So White at this point, White said to themselves, I could capture, yeah, but that allows, if I capture, that allows the bishop to come out. That would basically give my opponent 4 pieces out, and I'd have 4 pieces. But in this situation, I would be kind of slightly not as good. So to develop another piece, White actually castled queenside. And this developed a rook into the fight. And so now what could happen is this rook now dominates the d file. And so what could happen is after takes here, you can take back. So now this knight is under fire. This e4 knight's under fire. If pawn takes, if pawn takes here, the knight hangs. There's no king here anymore. So that's, now let's see what happens. Castling like this is a kind of magic move, the author says, that some amateur not amateurs, let me see, some are amazed at, that's what I mean, I read that wrong, sorry, are amazed at the move in general. It looks like it can't be played, but it can be played, because this knight, once this knight gets taken, this pawn will eventually fall. So it's like, for real, let's say they play, we'll say bishop e6. We're just going to say bishop e6. Knight takes, pawn takes, and then rook slams there. You win the pawn back. You have the initiative. You're better developed. So that move is, like what the author says, a magical maneuver. But it isn't magic, that's what he says. It's an appreciation on how development trumps material gain. Paul Morphy would have spotted this. Paul Morphy would have spotted castle queenside immediately. So this isn't Paul Morphy. This is Timid versus Winitz. But Paul Morphy, who was an attacker like Tall, would have spotted this too. So I wish he would have put in there Tall would have spotted it. I know Emmanuel Tall would have spotted it, because it's such a tactical masterpiece of a move. Because the threat is like what we talked about. Knight actually takes d5 here is an exclam move. Black has no time for bishop to f5. See, if we took, like what we said, bishop f5 would be what, oops, I'm sorry, one second, hold on. I have to enlarge the board really fast. There we go. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make it so it's a lot easier for you to see. This is much bigger. And so that's the idea, would be knight takes, and there's no time for this, no time for that. And black has again no time for knight f2 and then the bishop move either. There's no time for that. So bishop takes c3 is forced. Knight takes c3. Now all the pieces will soon come into play. Another black is down to 2 developmental pieces. Excuse me. But white has a better attacking ratio here now because of 3 here versus 2 defenders, or two out for black and 3 out for white. So still an advantage. Yeah, white has a favor ratio of 3 to 2. That's what the author says. And with the move knight takes here, and then queen takes exclam, this actually will nullify any of black's chances of an advantage at all. Black doesn't have any good alternate moves to play. Like, we'll play the move that he did play. He played here, of course, because that's kind of forced. An alternate move potentially could be d4. E takes d4. Knight c6. And then queen e3, with the idea of basically picking up a pawn. This is horrible, very bad for black, really bad, because now the king actually has to move. If the king were to move, the line actually stops at this point, but if the king moved here, you can actually take here and then takes, and then there's a check, and it's not looking too good. The king would have to walk the journey, as I like to call it, and then check, and then you take here, king takes, you come in, king up, and then basically the king has to, the queen has to be thrown in, and it's game, set, and match. So that's why there's really no good alterations but to take with queen takes, c3 check. So we enter into an endgame with b takes c. He would have been in bad shape if he had played king. There's also one other alternate move that could be played, king e7, or e3, yeah, e7, sorry, king e7, because h4 would come with a lot of pain. Harry is the hero. We gotta love Harry. Harry is the hero sometimes that has to clear a file for the pieces to come flooding in. If the pawn takes, then the bishop takes, the queen's lost. So that doesn't help one bit. And if g4, then rook takes d5, rook d8 to hold on to this pawn, because now it's attacked 3 times, or 2 times. Knight, let's see, what's going on? What am I missing here? Huh. Oh, got it. A rook h. I was trying to figure out where rook h5 was, and that's over here. So now what's actually happening is this rook is coming in. Potentially there's going to be a massive attack happening with bishop to f4. It's not looking too good for black. And at this point, black is seriously worse. The author says he's seriously worse here. There's not much that black could do. So he actually played somewhat the best variation. But now we can take. We need to step back, like what you should do as a chess player after. What's wrong with what? Hold on. What's wrong with bishop takes? Bishop takes d6. Queen takes d6. Queen takes d6. Surprisingly, that looks like a good puzzle rush. Surprisingly, that would actually be, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess that would be a good move. That would be an I'll put an interesting mark there because that is an interesting move. I'm sure there's a reason that they didn't play that. There's something to do. Maybe it has to do with maybe the king. Maybe the king comes up, and now the queen would it would have to trade off. Queen takes. So I'm thinking it has to do with something like that. I'm not exactly sure. That is actually a really good idea. So I don't know about that one. I'm not sure why the author didn't see that one. Just trying to see. There has to be something that's problematic with that. Maybe this rook isn't. Maybe it has to do with something to do with. Oh, boy. Maybe it's development. Maybe it's something to do with development. I'm trying to see. I don't know. I'm not actually sure. That is actually a winning move. Yeah, that is actually a winning move. So good spot there. That's an interesting move. I'm sure there's. Hold on. Let me see. There has to be a continuation that we're overlooking. Just let me check with the engine real quick, cause. Okay. Okay, this is actually kind of what I was thinking. Then rook takes, and then you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's winning. That's the human error factor that you have to always take into consideration. No, it's good. That was good. Hey, there you go. No, that actually. There's actually a book by Joel Benjamin called liquidation on the chessboard, and he discusses when the Super Grandmasters liquidate down. Like, he had a really good game in there with Gary Kasparov. I believe it was versus. I got to go over it again. I haven't went over the book in a while. Gary Kasparov versus Karpov. He has a really good liquidation on that one. So you just have to be in tune, like when to liquidate down to a winning endgame. So that was a good move, really good move. So D takes C, and then bishop takes C here. The true, he says, stripes of the position this truly takes the position down. Or he calls it basically we're taking all the pieces off the board. And the position is down to its most important elements. The elements of an endgame is now coming into play here. And there's an exciting, all the excitement factors are all gone here. And so now we're into an endgame. And you have to be really ready for your endgame. Some players like to keep it into the middle game, where they can basically do tactics. But if you get good at the end game, which is what will take you to the next level of chess play, because at a certain level, like 2000 or above, a lot of the games are decided in the end games. So it's you from 2000 and up, it's end game. I know, it's like, huh? It is. That's the case, though. Black will lose the d pawn, d6 pawn, like what we talked about, and material will become equal. But white's active pieces and the two bishops give white a huge edge in this position over black's knight and bishop. So especially when the position, Yazur calls this the sweet spot, and this is actually in theory the center right here. I'll show you. This is the center. He did a St. Louis one. St. Louis. I think it's this. Let me see. Let's see here. He did one. Yazur did one about. He talked about how this here is like the center is like a mountain or a hill, and if you place your soldiers that are affecting the hill here, which it made perfect sense to me when I was listening to it, you're going to be able to have better attacks. Like your riflemen will, if you have riflemen, your riflemen will be able to have better shooting, like your bishops. Your knights will have optimum, basically night charges from the top of a hill. Your rooks, which are your cannons, will have wonderful abilities to get cannon, shots down range. And then your queen, which is the commander, will be able to set up maybe a fort or something on that hill so that you can hold it and then really do some, from that point, you can branch out if that's a vital point in on the map. If it's a huge point, you then can branch out from there. That's why outposts, when they talk about outposts, it's all military strategy. And so it made perfect sense when Grandmaster Yazur Seirawan was talking about this as the mega hill, and then these points right here as kind of like a lesser this is kind of like it stair steps up, but so this would be like a stair stepping hill, but this would be the hill that you'd want to put all your troops on, or you want to kind of control. So this is a vital spot to control as well. But Grandmaster Yazur Seirawan calls this the sweet spot, and he explained why he called it the sweet spot, and it made just perfect sense to me. I never looked at it like that. I always looked at, you just dominate the center, you get an advantage and win. But militarily, it makes sense that this would be like the hill that you'd want to take and put all your forces on, and then charge down to your opponent, or if you're white, charge up to your opponent against black. And that's why they said that these two bishops, the light square, dark square bishop, are superior to black's pieces. It's because this bishop dominates the sweet spots. And when a knight comes, or a bishop comes, it'll dominate a sweet spot too. Let me see here. Okay. A huge advantage. He has chosen a strong continuation. Okay, this is what was actually, it actually went in the game. Yeah. Yeah, I listened to that from, it was on St. Louis Chess Club. Grandmaster Yasura talked about it. So if you can go and check it out, it's really good. I like how Grandmaster Sarawan teaches. Let me see. Okay, perfect. I have to get my bishop out here. Okay, that was what was actually played. This move, bishop e6, was played in the game. It makes sense to guard your c4 pawn. But they're saying that a continuation, a stronger continuation for black, though, would have been actually knight c6. And now that if bishop takes, hold on, what am I missing here? Oops, sorry about, let's see, is that, hold on, did I, bishop, hold on, did I miss something here? Hold on, what did I oops, did I miss something here? Hold on, what did I do? Oh, drat. D takes. This was actually the continuation. Drat. Well, we'll just delete this here. So I'm glad we didn't go too far in. C takes. I missed a line. That's irritating. Okay, I missed a line. This wasn't played. It's a good move, but why not take and develop with tempo? That's my bad. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, team. And then now bishop c e6 makes sense, so that if trade happens, or if takes here, so they're saying that a stronger continuation, though, now that we went over that, is knight c3, knight c6, and now bishop takes d6. There we go. Now this is a better continuation for white. I knew there was something wrong. That didn't feel strong enough, because you want your bishops with their bishops are the best sniping units on the board. So b6 here, and then rook d2, hd1. Wait a second, hold on, b2. Then then hd1. Okay, got it. There's also, at this point, if there's another continuation, that if rook takes d6, that could be played. And after whatever black moves, we'll say like bishop here, you could trade, and then rook hd1, which is a strong continuation. Which probably better would be just to take here, and then if you had to, go back there. So I know, but I'm just saying that this is kind of white's optimum position here, having the rooks like this and having a bishop here. White's optimizing their position. Okay, the game actually went, though, knight bishop e6, bishop takes e6, pawn takes e6, or f takes e6, rook takes d6, and then king e7 to try to hold the position together. Rook hd1. Now actually white has optimized their position to the T. really there's nothing that black can really do. Black's going to come under heavy pressure. Black really can't move this knight, because if the knight ever moved, the rook would come, like if knight here, which it wasn't played, the rook would come there and the pawn would drop off the board, and so a soldier would lose its life. So we can't do that. Okay, king f6 was played here, so you got to promote this to the main line. And then f4 exclam, because you're thinking, wait a second, aren't you, as we like to say, gumming up the position, or putting your bishop's losing all of its scope, its attacking power, right? What you doing, right? No, you're wanting to open up the position. Black takes the initiative to play knight c6, and then we play f takes g5. H takes g5, and then now, because the knight is gone from b7, the knight, in what Grandmaster Maurice Ashley says, he said that you have to ask yourself, ask the question, what did my opponent leave behind when this knight moved from c to c6 back here? The knight left the d7 square on pre, if you want to think about it. And so when after takes, now rook d7 in, the b pawn will come under heavy pressure, b7 pawn. And that actually gets an exclam because it's a forcing, it forces black to do something to protect that b pawn. Rook b6, and then rook to f1 check, king g6, rook d6, knight d8, and that actually cuts. If you notice something, the communication with the rooks are cut off. So they're trying to, if you think about what it means for lines of communication on the battlefield to be cut off, it'd be like the rook trying to say, hey bro, what's going on? And then all they get is shh. That's the lines of communication being cut. This knight cut the lines of communication between these two pieces to defend that pawn, and it has to defend it. You could defend it differently. Hey, how you doing? With potentially maybe rook he, but the problem is the knight's under fire, so the knight has to move. So this is a really strong move. The knight has to go back to defend, but the lines of communications have been compromised for black. And white then plays a move that ends the game soundly, bishop e5. And this is a really nice game. It's a really strong game here. Let me get a position set up here. We'll do one more. Yeah, nice. Okay, let me see here. Hold on. Let me go to board editor. Clear the board. We'll do one more position. And then we'll go over it. Ooh, that's hard. I have a lot of favorites. I think Tactics for Scratch is a fun one. I know that Tactics for Kids is one of my favorite ones because I like how they teach the tactics in that book. That's cool. And if you are interested in learning tactics, Tactics for Kids is a really good one. Okay, got white set up. Oops, I forgot at one bishop and then I gotta do it. Oops, one more knight. Make sure I have this correct. Yep, we got that one correct. Yes, that one's correct. Yes, that was correct. Oops, I gotta move the king over. I knew there was a problem. Let's just go over it real quick. There. Perfect. So far, so good. Excellent. 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 Great. Now it's black to move in this line. Okay. Let's study. So let's make this into a study. Okay. I'm going to turn it for black here. This is actually a game from, it's a World Championship match, 1995. It's between Vishy Anand as white and Garry Kasparov as black. So this is when Anand faced Kasparov. That's the World Championship. Hold on. Oops, I forgot a D on there. That would be helpful. Okay. We'll do there. And then there, so that you know the dates are separate. There you go. Okay. It's white, black to move here. Figuring out what matters is hard. Figuring out what matters is most hard. That's what the author says. What makes it hard is that from our first days of studying chess, we are, told the do's and don'ts of chess. At first, these tips seem to help us, dramatically. They will give you a elevation at the first. What that means is you'll get an advantage if you learn the principles really good when you're first starting out. You'll do really good, but at a certain level, you have to dive deeper into chess and help you with position. You can decide an advantage if of a knight. Let's say you have two knights, you can find out which knight's better by the activity of the knight, or which bishop's better by the activity of the bishop. Let me see here. Sometimes he says that when you dive to the next level or go to the next level in your chess understanding, you'll start having slight moments of confusion because you're now looking at chess differently. The principles aren't enough. It's the how to use the principles that you have to start mastering at that point. Like when we're taught in chess to develop first, like develop your pieces, then castle, and then after that you could start looking for an attack. But when you get to the higher levels of chess, you'll start seeing that it's based on positional advantages. Like you'll start looking at a piece sacrifice, not like a rook for a knight, and the principle tells us that a knight's 3 pawns, a rook's 5 pawns. And so your opponent, in theory, won 2 pawns. But if that knight is an outposted knight that's causing your position lots of chaos and problems, and that rook is basically doing nothing but on the back rank, sacrificing for that powerful knight really helps to relieve the pressure on your position. And so you have to always be looking at the sacrifices positionally. And let me see here. What else does he say? Sometimes he says it's not the funnest thing to learn something new, but trust me, it's so worth it, my friends. When you take your chess to the next level, you'll start to see differently on the chessboard. It'll be like you get to see the beauty of a sacrifice. You get to see the beauty of a positional game. You get to see in a closed game how super grandmasters maneuver their pieces, and it just opens your horizon. I like how Gary Kasparov talked to Josh Waitzkins when he was younger, when he drew him at one of the Simos. He said to Josh, good luck on the black and white jungle, because the chessboard, you have the black pieces and the white pieces, and you have these light and dark squares. This is like, Gary said, it's like a jungle that you have to navigate your pieces through and fight on. And so I always think to that. I always remember that statement that Gary Kasparov told Josh Waitzkins, and it makes me laugh sometimes. And also is like, it is a jungle, that board, sometimes when you're looking at. That's why the Hannibal Smith of even inside of a random position there's a plan. There really is. Okay, let's dive into the plan here. Alright, now it's black to move here. We did a little bit of reading just from the position so the author would tell us what to look at. So he says, in general, black has his knight is attacked by white's pawn. It's black to move. So the knight, just exit out. Sorry about that. That was kind of annoying there. Should have clicked off that while I was talking. Knight fd5 is a strong move. And so what happens, let's just play that really fast. He's saying that knight fd5 is strong. And then if knight takes d5, knight takes d5. But that leaves white with a free hand to attack the king side, which now has come under a lot of pressure. See, what'll happen is this bishop's coming over, this knight's coming over, this queen's coming in, and then this rook is coming down. So white has, in theory, 4 pieces that are ready to basically storm the keep of the king's camp and try to breach the fortress. And so Gary saw this continuation. He played here, takes. He didn't take with the knight because he wants to keep his options open with this knight to be able to take the bishop. He took with the pawn, which breaks in the theory that we're taught. This breaks all theory because well, it doesn't break theory, I guess, because you are taking towards the center, but you have to look at your pawn structure. This, in theory, weakens the king, but it really doesn't, because if you're looking at the position, your knight is still attacking the bishop, which would remove one of the attackers of your king, and if the bishop moves away, your rook or knight, black's rook or knight, can come in and grab a pawn. So this keeps Gary's threat Gary's pressure's still alive. He's not better, he's not worse. So he's about equal. Promote. There we go. Okay. Where are we at? Oh, perfect. Got it. He responds. He's attacking the bishop on d3, like what we talked about. Knight takes. Let me see here. What did white play here? What am I missing here? Oh, sorry, rook e1. Rook e1 was what was played. You could try knight g5. And surprisingly, you'd think, wait a second, you can't take this knight. Yes, you can. You take there on g5. The queen comes to h5. Now it fails to knight takes the bishop. And this was Gary's whole plan, that Anon would not be able to use his bishop and queen advantage on h6. And then the rook coming down and just everything going to ruins. Now that's why he kept the knight on b4. Was he saw that Anon's idea was to go knight to g5, try to get a mate threat on h7, and then just start causing chaos in Gary's camp. But Gary prevented that. Rook e1. Gary played h5 now. There's no more threat of g5 anymore. So he's made basically a spot for the king to go to when this bishop comes off the board. The king has a kind of a secret compartment to safety himself in. Just in case the position gets a little too hot, he can go to his secret chambers. Okay, c3 to attack the knight. Knight takes d3. So now the attack on Gary's camp has basically fizzled out, and Gary's the one that potentially has play. It's kind of like neutralized, so it may come down to a draw. He is aiming for a positional edge, black is. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Okay, yeah. As well, a well-placed white knight can dominate black's bad light squared bishop. That can be an important, even a winning advantage in the hands of a good player like Vishy Anand loves the knights. So if you give him 2 knights for a rook, he'll take that any day. One time he even sacked one of his rooks for a knight, and he did. It was such beautiful maneuvering that he was able to play. Okay, let's see. But black understands that what matters most is whether the knight can get to d4. The d4 here. If it does, it is severely restricting the d7 bishop. If it doesn't, the knight isn't a big factor in the game. So white wants to get the knight to d4. Once you realize it is easy to find the move bishop c5. General principle tells us that the player with 2 bishops should not trade one of them off. but bishop to c5 is actually, in the author's words, better for black. And this stops the knight from enjoying his outpost. So let me see what I think. Okay, the continuation is I think that's, oh, wait a second. Queen takes d5. That's what Anon played. But they're saying that if bishop takes c5, rook takes c5, and then knight d4 at this point is surprisingly a mistake. This is actually a mistake. You can you can actually play, surprisingly, rook takes e5 here. Just drops a pawn, and black is slightly better, surprisingly, out of all that attack that white had on black, by trading off one of the pairs of the bishops, which violates the principles of what we're taught. The two bishops usually are better than a knight and a bishop. This won the position, basically. It's not a total win position, but it's a winning position. So queen takes d5. But black has foreseen that bishop e6 would be good for him. And after queen d2, the bishop takes b6, a takes b6, and then rook c6. The b pawn is lost. The game was drawn soon after. Black has twice passed the what's the test, basically. That's what the author's joking. But Bobby Fischer gave the highest praise to a young player who had a clear idea of a goal in a position. This is what the author says. When he was 16 years old, this is the kid's name that Bobby Fischer. I'll put the kid's name in. Bobby Fischer watched a game from this one young prodigy. So you guys know, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I just spelt it out for you. For the first time, Fischer said what was important to him most was the self. Was his self style? Oh, he had a style that was all to himself, how he looked at the position. Fischer was impressed the most at this position. His knowing exactly what he wanted to do, this young 16-year-old prodigy, and he took advantage of it. And why we wanted to use this, I think, as what is that? Let me see here. I don't think this is the game, but he watched that. I don't know if this this player has any games. I'm not exactly sure, but it said that Bobby Fischer watched one of the games. I'm surprised he didn't add a game in here for that. That would have been wonderful if he could have found the game that went to the one that Bobby Fischer looked at. But sadly, there's no game that goes with what Bobby Fischer was saying. But the young prodigy must have played a move like back here, bishop c5, and it must have really impressed the world champion Bobby Fischer, or Robert Fischer, that he said something about it. That's huge when you get a compliment from Robert Fischer, or Bobby Fischer. So, okay. Let's see how we're doing on time. Maybe we have enough time for one more. We'll see. Yeah, we got enough time for another one that we can go over. Let me see. How long is this one? Not too long. Yeah, we'll go over this. We'll go over this one. This is not too long of one. I'll set up another one. But I wish they would have. I wish the author would have concluded or put a game in from that one player. That would have been good. Okay. Okay, clear the board. Let's get this position set up. Okay. This time, again, it's black to move, so. It looks like a lot of pieces haven't been traded off the board yet. And this one. Let me set white up first, and then we'll set black up. Two rooks. Let me make sure I have the whole position set up right. Okay. Then we'll do one more, then I gotta say adieu on this. Because I love studying chess so much, but, you know, I do love studying chess. So you gotta have the passion for it. Let me see here. There. So good. Good. And I know you, my Team Chess Cruncher, you have the passion. Okay, let me see. Okay, perfect. Just give me 1 second to make sure I put it all in. Perfect. Okay, each line I'm just going over really efficiently to make sure I have all the pieces on it. Okay, perfect. And it's black to move. It's a study. This is the Russian Championship, 1995. There we go. It's black to move. Okay, perfect. So they said black spent several tempos in the opening to get his pieces to protect the d4 pawn. So black spent a lot of time getting the pieces to protect the d4 pawn. So this is the position that they're talking about. That knight on c6 came from g8. Surprisingly, this knight here came from g8. And white in turn played c3. if black could play d takes c, then b takes c would allow the control of d4, and all of black's play would be for nothing. So this is actually what was played by black, was queen b6. So what they're saying, that if this is a continuation that may have happened, b takes, then this square here, the d4, would have been surrendered. If he can follow up d3 to d4, he would gain an important space advantage against the dark squared bishop of black, and basically have a good central control, and all of his foot troops would be in the center, or on the hill, where you would want to be, where it would want to be placed. So black's knowing what would come about if that happened, decided to say, if you want to take, then I can actually drop a knight into d4 and have a well-placed outpost for my knight, so that it can do a lot of it can charge down the hill wherever it needed to. White played c4, which is actually, surprisingly, this is an exclam move. At first look, this is an ugly move. That's what the author says, ugly. It surrenders the fight for d4, and it makes the bishop on b3 into nothing more than a big pawn, or as Jeremy Silman calls it, a tall pawn. But white's approach to c4, the renders black's bishop and queen toothless. Basically, there's this bishop and this queen have nothing to bite on. There's this bishop is as bad as this bishop, probably even worse, because how much time did black spend to get his pieces to these spots? This knight that's on c6 originated on g8, so all those tempos to get a pawn, protect d4, it's protected, but has black gained anything? No. And so it means there is only one obvious target left on the board, and it's a big one: black's king side. So now that the queen side basically has been neutralized via c4, the next frontier for white's campaign of an attack would be on the king side. So d6 was played by black, and I believe the idea is so that they would be able to play e5 at this point. e5 would probably be the next move on the table for black. Then the light square bishop can come out. Queen g4, exclam. White is now, after white dealt with, in chess, Grandmaster Simon Williams said this, that as chess players, we can't always focus on what we want to do all the time. We sometimes have to, for a moment, prevent our opponent's ideas from coming to pass, which is what c4 did. And now white can play their plan. White can actually now get their attack going and start an attack of their own. But first, white had to deal with black's threat on d4. Okay, d6. Okay, queen g4. Castles. Would white obtains if black were to castle, white would white would obtain a dangerous play. The castles would be really scary here. Let's say the move that he played was g6, but if oh, well, just imagine castles. If he were to castle, white would obtain a dangerous plan of c takes b5, a takes b5, and then knight to f3, and h6 then would be a target on that. Yeah, c takes c takes b5, a takes b5, and then knight f3. Yep, that's right. That's right. Black has won the battle for d4, but that square was become virtually meaningless. So black's whole idea was to protect d4, but that is now basically a pointless nothing move. Surprisingly, it's 0, nothing. And I forgot to, because I had to set up this position, I forgot to put castles in. I apologize, guys. So if you're going to try to castle, you can't if you try to move the board on our studies. So I apologize about that, but you've got to bear with me on this. Okay, so white's attack is what matters most here. Okay, I hope there's no castles. Whew, I was worried. I thought black might have castled here, because I can't really castle. Oops. I have to remember when you're dealing with positions, I have to put in the castle queen side for both sides when you're setting up a position. So h6, which was played, queen h4, queen d8, which is actually a mistake here. Bishop g5. This is kind of a interesting move. The pawn takes. Yeah, you got it. Queen b6, which that was a pointless move. Bishop f6, you got it. Rook f8. And then queen takes h6. a6, bishop a6, knight g5, and man, look at the pieces just flow in. They're just coming right on in. Knight e5, queen g7, and white resigned. That was a game between, you can look at the study, it was this one here. Sorokin versus, and so what we actually learned throughout history, what masters have changed the way we play throughout the history of chess. Masters have changed the way we play this game by pointing out new ways to appreciate chess. What matters most, FA, what's his name? What's his? Let me see. Philidor. Philidor. I couldn't remember his name. Philidor explains how pawns are important, not pieces. Sometimes that's what some believe, that pawns were as important, are even more important that pawns were. Before a lot of the masters, yeah. Uh, Masters, they would just basically sacrifice a pawn without thinking before the idea of pawn's importance came into play. It's a vital how important pawns are in a position in modern play. And also, chess engines have shown how important pawns are. Of course, AlphaZero versus Stockfish, there was a French I think it was Stockfish played a French defense, and AlphaZero played a game. I forgot what it was, and what happened was they won. So yeah, in that one it was interesting how pawn importance have come in, and Morphy showed us how development can matter most in the opening sometimes. Paul Morphy. Position Wilhelm Steinitz stressed the importance of uh, having two good bishops. Sometimes you also two good bishops. Let me see, two good bishops. The two bishop advantage matters a lot. Fischer demonstrated why you have to give up control of certain squares in order to control others that are important. What today's masters appreciate is that even uh, change in chess to like a type of positional play makes it an incredible game, and it makes a big difference. What we've learned from, and then I'm going to wrap up on this. What we've actually learned from chess, hundreds of years before till now, the pawns have become an important play in chess. Beforehand, I know I said it before that it was not as important. The pawns and chess players, I were just there to sacrifice, open up, cause damage to the position. But now as modern, the more we go into positional understanding, we see how important pawns are. Okay, and I think I will leave you with that. Any questions on what we went over before I log off? Yeah, you're right. It did. Yeah, they even talked about the author did talk about castling is important in that line. So that is correct. All in one play. That author did say that was the best continuation, even though Black would come under serious pressure. It was the best continuation. Any other questions? I'll give you one more minute before I log, because I know sometimes there's a lag sometimes. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Any questions at all? because I'll just give you a second to think. Type in if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer. So it tells you though what panic does to the position. The black was worried about their position so much and the fear of the attack that they didn't play as good as, like what you're saying, to castle. Okay, I will take that as a no. Wanted to thank you all for logging on, participating. Great job on listening, learning, and improving. We're going to try to go over some more and get some more studies in rather than tactics, because tactics are good. I love doing tactics, but you have to also get some studies. And we're going to be going over we're going to be going over some of this book here. So we're going to be going over a little bit of that, and we're going to see how and we're going to learn. You're going to learn along right with me about what it takes to become a chess master. Okay, and you know what we have to remember is, as important as positions and moves are, the choice to receive the Lord Jesus is as important as well as that. The move on a board affects the entire position, like we saw with G6. That ruined the position. Castle would have been better. That's why it's important to receive the Lord Jesus, Lord and Savior, because we have to decide one day what are we going to do with the Lord Jesus. Okay, and that what Bruce Lee said about that position of G6, if you lose a game because you played kind of a bad move that weakened the dark squares, take what you know and apply it. So go back over the game. The hardest thing for a chess player to do, as I find, is going over their losses. Trust me, you have to find out what was the turning point in the game, not just to spot what was the bad move, but understand what you as a chess player, what you were thinking, and then learn from it. And that's what the phrase that we talked about, treasure your victories, learn from your losses. Remember that mistakes do not define you. It's how you handle a mistake that defines you as a chess player and a person in general in whatever area the Lord Jesus has called you into. Remember, though, the Team Chess Cruncher motto, and it will help you throughout with anything that you're doing. If you, my friends, hang up your coats, hang up your hats, sit down and study when most won't. Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says, serve the Lord Jesus, and as I say, God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll go over some more of our book and do some more learning and improving. Remember what Hannibal Smith even said, and surprisingly, the author said the same thing, that even inside of a random position, there's always a plan. It's kind of like it's like there. So you know what? They're right. It applies even to chess, even to the board at hand. Even inside of a random position, there's always a plan. And when you find it, you get to say, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, 2 thumbs up. Hoorah, be blessed. Have fun studying chess. Always study the Team Chess Cruncher way, and you'll improve and keep getting better. 2 thumbs up. Hoorah, be blessed, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, team. Go Team Chess Cruncher. Hoorah.